Hello, I'm Ron Ohm, and I teach at Martin Luther College, specifically in the area of secondary education. I'm a student teacher supervisor for those young men and women who wish to teach in high schools. And prior to going out, I also teach them a course called Adolescent Psychology, part of their professional semester. I'd like to take some time to lead you through a brief in-service to get you to know a little bit better one of the WELL's teaching standards. Standard number 2. Christian teachers know how individuals grow and develop. Let's start up with a warm-up activity. I'd like you to think about this individually and then share your answers with a colleague. I'd like you to think back to the group of students that you had last year. How well did you know them collectively? How well did you know them individually? Pause the video and discuss those two questions. Now think of the students that you will be teaching this school year. What would be important to know about them? And why would it be important to know these things about them? Again, as a warm-up activity, pause the video and discuss these two questions, please. Consider the following quote. If I had 8 hours to chop down a tree, I'd spend 6 hours sharpening my axe. Do you know who said that? Or perhaps not so important that Abraham Lincoln said it, is the points he was trying to make. Here's another chance for discussion, this time with a colleague or as a whole group if you wish. What wisdom did Lincoln reveal in this quote? Pause to discuss that question briefly, please. Did you consider the following points? Lincoln's saying, identify the task that needs to be accomplished. In this case, chopping down a tree. I would call that being aware of what you need to do. And Lincoln also then is telling us to identify and use the tools required to accomplish the task with a high degree of efficiency. So what was important to him was to be able to cut down the tree with efficiency. So he was willing to spend 6 hours and just spend 2 hours chopping it. If his tool was sharp, he felt he was prepared. What applications can be made to the field of education? Again, a brief discussion on this question. Consider these points. Effective teachers do their best to know the members of their audience, and I'm going to refer to the students as your audience. And secondly, effective teachers prepare themselves with tools that help meet the very needs of their audience so that growth and development can occur. Let's look at the point of knowing your audience, your students. An effective teacher understands how students learn and develop and provides instruction that supports growth in the following areas: spiritual, intellectual, physical, social, and emotional. So when you look at the whole child, those 5 components become very important pieces. An effective teacher wants to know as much as they can about those 5 areas to support growth. Of course, spiritual being paramount. We also know from research that an effective teacher knows that even though every student has the ability to learn and develop, no 2 students will learn and develop in the same way. Think of the class you just had last year, or years in past, depending upon how long you've been teaching. The field of neuroscience has helped educators get a better understanding of why differences in learning and development exist. The research focuses on one of God's greatest creations, the human brain. And as a result, effective educators are embracing brain-based learning as a research-based way to know and serve their students. Perhaps the name Eric Jensen is familiar to you. He's produced many books. He is a former educator, and he's been making practical connections between what neuroscience has discovered and the classroom for the past 2 decades. Here is Jensen's rationale for brain-based learning. He writes that brain-based education is a purposeful engagement of strategies based on the principles derived from solid scientific research. It is also the application of a meaningful group of principles that represent our understanding of how our brain works in the context of education. Brain-based teaching is all about smarter, more purposeful teaching that can reach a greater number of students. It's not any one single thing you do. It's more about the ongoing, purposeful aggregate of environment, instruction, and curriculum strategies that make it all work. Neuroscience has also discovered these following points. Brains are far more variable than previously thought. According to Jensen, normal healthy brains exist in about 10% of the population. But for the other 90%, there's plenty of internal, we call that nature, and external, called nurture, factors that affect their development. And that finding supports teachers' intuition that educational differentiation is just as important as they always suspected. Jensen also says that brains have the ability to change more than previously thought. That's a term we call plasticity, or a brain is plastic. And those changes can continue through life. Jensen also has found that every cognitive skill can be taught. In the context of the previous points that brains are more variable and they are plastic, every child has the ultimate potential for success when met with the proper strategies and support. We could say the right type of environment and the right type of teacher. Van Dam reported that learning is a physical process in which new knowledge is represented by new brain cell connections. Changes in neural connections, which are fundamental for learning to take place in the brain, do not seem to occur when learning experiences are not active. You've heard of the term active learning. Speaking from a lectern and lecturing and never giving students a chance to interact in any way is not going to help them in that learning context, because that learning is passive not active. Research tells us that we can make changes by encouraging active learning. And perhaps you've seen this in your classroom, that all learning does have an emotional base. Motivation in the brain is driven by emotion. Think of some of the most traumatic things that have happened in your lives. 9/11. Maybe some of you are as old as I am and can remember the assassination of John Fitzgerald Kennedy back in '63. We'll never forget those events. We can remember where we were when they happened because we associated much emotion with them. And when you connect emotion with learning, there is a chance for real productivity. Now that we've learned who our audience is, let's figure out from research how to gain, and I would say retain, that audience. So being aware of students' cognitive potential does prepare a teacher to better serve their intellectual needs. But let's now give consideration to the importance of relationship building among students, but more importantly, between you and your students, as a key asset in your ability to gain an audience. Here's another chance for some discussion. I'd like you to consider for a moment, how does wholesome relationship building between you and your students prepare you to better serve their spiritual, intellectual, physical, social, and emotional needs? Again, please pause the video and discuss this with your faculty. First and foremost, an effective Christian teacher strives to foster the relationship between Christ and each student, providing learning environments in which the student is reminded about self-worth in Christ is one of the reasons our Lutheran schools exist. Christ's love permeates instructional and managerial strategies, but it also establishes the foundation for a Christian teacher's relationship with each student. When a student knows that he or she is loved unconditionally by both Christ and his or her teacher, the potential for meaningful, spiritual, intellectual, physical, social, and emotional growth does truly exist. From pre-K through high school, children, adolescents need the care, support, and commitment that comes from teachers who know their audience so they can gain and retain that audience. Let's make application. We've taken a brief look at how neuroscience has helped educators better understand how learning takes place, and then we reviewed the importance of relationship building between you and your students. Now let's revisit Wells Standard number 2 by examining and applying 4 key criteria. Criterion 1. It tells us that a Christian teacher assesses individual and group performance in order to design instruction that meets learners' current spiritual, intellectual, physical, social, and emotional needs. We'll come back to that criterion in a bit. Criterion 2. A Christian teacher stimulates reflection on prior knowledge and links new content to learners' prior knowledge. A Christian teacher also provides opportunities for engagement, manipulation, and testing of ideas in view of God's Word, and encourages learners to take responsibility for their learning tasks. And finally, criterion 4, a Christian teacher applies theories of human development to classroom instruction. Let's try to get a better understanding of the criteria so that we can meet that standard. Here's criterion 1 once again, and it focuses on assessment of individuals and groups in order to plan new instruction and instruction that will meet students' current needs. Instruction, therefore, should be age appropriate. It's good to challenge your students. It's good to stretch their minds and expand their experiences. But we also have to be careful. If we want to be effective, we can't teach too far above them, because we know we have much variety in the classroom, and it has to be age appropriate based on what we know about child and youth development. Instruction should also maximize involvement. We want children engaged in learning. We want hands raised, maybe nods of the head going on. We want to get them working individually. We want them to be working with each other. How can we plan instruction that maximizes their involvement? Instruction should also encourage active learning. I made reference previously to a mere lecture where students are passively sitting and the teacher is hoping that these students will simply absorb what is being said. And chances are they're not going to absorb as much. That doesn't mean that lecture cannot be used, but there are ways that you can tell students things and still engage them by asking them questions on what they learned, having them summarize or repeat to the teacher or to each other. Again, ways to encourage active learning. And instruction should also provide variety. Teaching becomes more enjoyable when there is variety. However, variety should be done with purpose in mind. Novelty for novelty's sake will not be good, but novelty with good rationale, either through research or experience, provides a great opportunity both for the learner and the teacher to enjoy the experience. And finally, instruction should be flexible enough to provide appropriate modifications. You will have students who will have IEPs or other special plans. They cannot learn like the other students. Modifications need to be made. Differentiation has to be considered. Now, these 5 points that I just outlined are key components at Martin Luther College when we evaluate our student teachers, whether it's at the primary, elementary, or secondary levels. We want them to plan their instruction that meets these criteria, and we evaluate them based on their success in doing so. Criterion 2. An effective teacher stimulates reflection on prior knowledge and links new content to learners' prior experience. Do you understand what the picture is saying and showing? Yes. The importance of making connections. Effective teachers want to connect prior knowledge that students have with new knowledge so that students can see there is a progression of learning. There's a reason why we learn how to add before we learn how to multiply. There is a reason why we understand some of the things that perhaps caused a war to begin before we look at some of the results of the war. And secondly, focusing on connecting, we want to be able to connect subject matter with students' lives to help them see the relevance of learning. You've heard the question, why do we have to learn this? Or maybe it's muttered individually, why do I have to learn this? And perhaps we can give an answer right away, and perhaps we can at least give an answer for later on in life, this is really going to be important. Well, if you can make it relevant right now, and at least convince students that there's a reason why you've assigned what you've done, or the activity that you've chosen, again, good rationale, that helps students understand, okay, I get it, at least it's worth putting in some effort. Criterion 3. An effective teacher provides opportunities for engagement, manipulation, and testing of ideas in view of God's Word, and encourages learners to take responsibility for their learning tasks. I encourage you to consider the possibility of inquiry teaching or learning. This process has 3 steps. Step 1 is for the learner to identify the problem that needs to be solved. Step 2 is the learner selects a process that he or she chooses to try to solve the problem. And step 3, having worked through the process, hopefully there is a chance to identify a tentative solution to the problem. Let's take this scenario. Let's say that your lawnmower won't start. You've got a long grass in your yard, you've got to cut the grass, but that mower just won't start. That's your problem. What process will you use? Are you going to check if there's gas? Are you going to check to see if the spark plug is connected or if it's fouled by too many uses? You're going to have to look and check out a number of things to try to solve that problem. If you find out that you're low on gas when you thought you had plenty of gas, your tentative solution is to put more gas in the gas tank. You pull the cord or turn the key, and sure enough, that was the problem. Now that's a very simple scenario, but it can be easily be applied to education. There are 3 levels of inquiry, teaching, and learning, but level 1 isn't really truly one that is going to help students. In level 1, the teacher basically chooses the problem, or the text might choose a problem, and then the teacher or the text also tell the students the process, leaving only the finding of a possible or tentative solution left for the students. I would propose that you would look at levels 2 and 3. Level 2 says, yes, maybe the teacher or the textbook does provide the problem, but notice the students get involved right away as they now choose the process to try to solve the problem. And certainly, you want them to work on a solution and then test their solution. That's level 2. Level 3, all 3 steps are initiated and completed by students. So in level 1, the teacher was very much part of the process. By level 3, the teacher has faded into the background. Here's another chance for discussion based on what you just learned. Consider these 2 questions. What blessings do these levels of inquiry, teaching, or learning provide both for you and your students? And also consider the challenges that they also provide for both you and your students. Please pause this video and discuss those 2 questions. Finally, criterion 4. An effective teacher applies theories of human development to classroom instruction. I'm going to introduce you to Thomas Armstrong. He wrote a book called Every Student is a Genius. Thomas Armstrong truly believes that every student has genius, and that genius is a driving force behind all learning. Now that philosophy in part stems from the etymology or the word history of the word genius. Genius comes from Latin and Greek, meaning to be born or to come into being, like the word Genesis, The word genius is also linked to the word genial, which means festive or conducive to growth, and jovial. Armstrong attests that genius means essentially giving birth to the joy in learning. And according to Armstrong, the genius is the symbol for an individual's potential. That is, all that a person may be that lies locked inside during the early years of development. When educators say they want to help students develop their potential, Armstrong would say what they're saying is that they want to assist their students in finding their inner genius. Armstrong expanded the concept of genius to include 12 basic qualities to identify it. They are not based on any established criteria, but they were chosen to give structure to the somewhat elusive notion of genius. Here's the first 5. What Armstrong would say is that every student, especially at a very early age of development, has these qualities. Add to that these 4, and finish with these 3 for the total of 12. Again, Armstrong attests that everybody has these 12 qualities locked up inside, waiting to be unlocked. And what he says then is that if genius has any core component, if you were to select the best of the 12, he says it's joy. Joy in learning something new. Let's go back to connecting emotion with learning. If you're feeling good about yourself, if you're feeling good about the world around you, if you're feeling good about what you're doing at the moment, there's a better chance you're going to be more conducive to learning and remembering and applying it later on than if you have no interest or you're trying to fight something because you don't want it. Joy can make a difference. Here's a chance to talk with each other about it. Consider these 2 questions. How valid is Armstrong's interpretation of the concept of genius? And which of the 12 basic qualities warrant consideration as you now think about your students you've served in the past, more importantly about those that are waiting for you this school year? Pause the video and select a means to discuss that with someone sitting with you. Having taken a look at several slides of understanding the criteria, let's now apply the criteria. Please refer now to page 5 of the Continuum of Wells Teacher Development for Standard 2. This should have been distributed to you by your leader. You'll notice across the top of the page there are 5 columns, and each column has a heading. The headings read from left to right: beginning, emerging, applying, integrating, and innovating. And there's a reason why they are listed in that order. Those are different levels of expertise. And this matrix is one of many designed to help you identify teacher behaviors associated with each degree of expertise. The 4 criteria printed on the far left are the ones that we've already examined. I'd like you as a faculty to individually take a look at this matrix and self-assess with this in mind. As you look at the matrix for helping students become better as they grow and develop, where would you place yourself on this continuum at this time in your teaching ministry for each of the 4 criteria? So take a look at a criteria on the left, read across the continuum, and see, are you at a beginning stage, emerging, and so on, based on the descriptors in the boxes. Consider maybe circling the descriptor at the top. Please take some time to do that right now. Consider this question then. Let's say you placed yourself at the applying stage on the continuum. What would it take for you to move 1 or several degrees to the right on the continuum? In other words, if you're at the applying level, what would it take for you to be identified as someone who is at an integrating level or an innovating level? Now, as a faculty, I'm going to give you a chance to watch others talk and show you some things about standard number 2. I'd like you to watch a YouTube clip entitled Know Your Students. It's a 1.5-minute clip. What I'd like you to do is to listen to those teachers and pick out 3 key pieces of advice that you will see or hear, and then discuss among your faculty their relevance to your school or your classroom setting. So at this time, look at the YouTube clip, Know Your Students. I've included a second clip of a teacher working with students. This time, do your best to divide your whole group into 2. Half of the faculty should select 2 of the 4 criteria, and the other half should select the remaining 2. Each of the 2 groups then should try to place this teacher from the second video clip on the continuum to indicate the level in which she is functioning in this activity. I'd like you to, in your discussion, then give evidence for your placement at that particular level of expertise. So after you've worked in small groups, put together what you've learned as a whole group. What, if any, difficulties did you experience in identifying a level of expertise for this teacher? Take some time to discuss your thoughts on that question. You were asked to read an article written by Carol Ann Tomlinson, who is a real guru on differentiation. That article was called One Kid at a Time. At this point, I would like you to pull out that article, the copies that were given to you. You've read it ahead of time, and now I'd like you to ask you something about what you read in application. So the question I pose to you is, in what ways does her article complement what this presentation has attempted to accomplish, namely, knowing how individuals grow and develop to better serve their needs? So in other words, what has Tomlinson offered to you in her article that can help you know and serve your students better? Take some time to discuss that question first. Secondly, select one cogent point that Tomlinson made in her article that you, as an individual teacher, can set, perhaps as a personal goal, for the upcoming school year. If you're interested in additional resources on some of the things that were covered in this in-service, many publications put out by Eric Jensen or others on brain-based learning are certainly available, and there are some intriguing studies and applications made to education. The February 2010 issue of Educational Leadership, which is an ASCD publication, was entitled Meeting Students Where They Are. That's where the Tomlinson article came from. And that magazine, or that particular issue, is dedicated to helping teachers get to know their students to better serve them. I would encourage you to take a look at some of those articles for professional reading on your own. In conclusion, it's been a pleasure serving you, and I hope that some of the things I've shared with you and some of the discussions that you have been very important and fruitful as you get into this new school year and prepare for the students that you will meet. And so I have these thoughts for you in conclusion, that may God bless all you do to prepare yourselves to serve your students. Get to know them, commit to love them, and continue to connect them to their Savior. God bless your school year. Thank you for your time.